What kind of person steals from a small-town office depot? Knowing cameras are watching. Karen Miller. That's who. She strutted into the store on a humid Tuesday afternoon, her oversized purse swinging like a pendulum, her sneer cutting through the air like a blade. The store was quiet, save for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional beep of a scanner. Karen, in her garish floral blouse, didn't bother to blend in. She moved with the confidence of someone who believed rules didn't apply to her, her eyes darting not with guilt but with calculation. The clerk, a young woman named Emily, barely 19, watched her from behind the counter, her gut twisting. Something about Karen screamed trouble. Karen didn't waste time. She marched straight to the stationery aisle, her heavy footsteps echoing. She snatched a pack of high-end pens, the kind executives used to sign million-dollar deals, and stuffed them into her purse. Then came a ream of premium paper, a box of ink cartridges, and a sleek leather planner. Her hands moved fast, practiced, as if she'd done this 100 times. Emily, wiping down the counter, caught a glimpse of the theft in the convex security mirror. Her heart raced. She'd been trained for this, but training didn't prepare her for the raw audacity of it. Karen wasn't sneaking, she was practically daring the store to stop her. Emily hesitated, her finger hovering over the button to alert security. Karen's reputation preceded her. In this small town, everyone knew her as the woman who screamed at baristas for getting her latte foam wrong, who bullied her way to discounts at the grocery store, who once made a librarian cry over a late fee. But Emily was new, desperate to keep her job, and the thought of letting a thief walk out gnawed at her. She pressed the button. Within moments, Mike, the security guard, appeared. He was a burly man in his 40s, with a no-nonsense stare that could silence a room. He approached Karen just as she shoved a stapler into her purse. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but firm, "I need you to step over here." Karen froze, her hand still in the bag, then turned with a look of pure venom. "Excuse me," she snapped, her voice loud enough to turn heads. "Do you know who I am?" Mike didn't flinch. "I know you've got store property in your bag. Let's talk." The air thickened with tension. Emily stood frozen at the counter, her hands trembling. A lone customer, an older man buying printer ink, paused in the next aisle, watching the scene unfold. Karen's face twisted into a sneer, her cheeks flushing red. "This is outrageous. I'm a paying customer," she bellowed, though her cart was empty. Mike gestured toward the back office. "We can do this quietly, or we can do it loud. Your choice." Karen didn't budge. She clutched her purse tighter, as if it were a shield, and raised her voice higher. "You're accusing me. I'll have your job for this." Emily's stomach churned. She hadn't signed up for this kind of confrontation, but she couldn't look away. Karen's performance was drawing attention, and Emily felt the weight of her decision to call security. What if Karen was right? What if she was some big shot who could get them all fired? Doubt crept in. But then she saw the corner of a pen pack peeking out of Karen's purse. Undeniable evidence. Emily's resolve hardened. She wasn't going to let this woman intimidate her. Mike, unfazed by Karen's tantrum, stepped closer. "Ma'am, we have you on camera. You can come with me now, or I call the police." Karen laughed. A harsh, grating sound. "Go ahead. Call them." I'm not afraid of you or your little cameras. But her eyes betrayed her. There was a flicker of panic, quickly buried under her bravado. Mike pulled out his radio and spoke into it, his voice steady. This is Office Depot. We need police assistance. Suspected shoplifter detained. Karen's bravado cracked. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. She hadn't expected this. She thought she could bully her way out, like always. But Mike wasn't a barista or a librarian. He was a man who dealt with worse than her and wasn't about to back down. The older customer in the aisle edged closer, pretending to browse but clearly eavesdropping. Emily felt a surge of adrenaline. This was happening. Karen was about to face real consequences. Then came the twist. Karen's purse, still clutched tightly, began to vibrate. The phone, buried under the stolen goods, was ringing. She fumbled to silence it, but not before Emily caught a glimpse of the screen. The caller ID read, Office Depot Manager. Emily's heart sank. Was Karen connected to someone higher up? Had Emily just made a terrible mistake? The call went to voicemail, but the damage was done. Doubt flooded back, stronger this time. Maybe Karen wasn't just a loudmouth. Maybe she had pull, real power to make their lives hell. Karen seized the moment. You see that? She hissed, waving the phone. That's my friend. Your boss. You're done here. Both of you. Mike's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. He didn't need to. The sound of sirens was already growing louder outside. Karen's smirk faltered. The police were coming, and no amount of name-dropping would save her now. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the tense silence in the Office Depot. Karen's face, once a mask of arrogance, now twitched with unease. She gripped her purse like a lifeline, the stolen goods inside weighing heavier by the second. Emily stood behind the counter, her hands still trembling but her resolve firm. Mike, the security guard, kept his eyes locked on Karen, his stance unyielding. The older customer, still lingering in the aisle, clutched his printer ink and watched, his curiosity outweighing his urge to leave. The store felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves were closing in on Karen. The phone call from the Office Depot manager lingered in Emily's mind, a nagging thorn of doubt. What if Karen wasn't bluffing? What if she really knew someone who could turn this around? Emily's job was already on thin ice. She was still in her probation period, and one wrong move could cost her everything. But then she remembered the pens, the paper, the stapler, all stuffed into Karen's purse. She'd seen it. The cameras had seen it. This wasn't about connections. This was about right and wrong. Karen, sensing the shift in the room, tried to regain control. This is a setup, she shouted, her voice shrill. You planted those items in my bag. I'm a loyal customer. Her words were desperate now, less convincing. Mike didn't bother responding. He'd heard it all before, every excuse, every lie. He simply pointed to the security camera above, its red light blinking steadily. Tell it to the police, he said. The door chimed as two officers stepped inside, their boots heavy on the tiled floor. The first, Officer Daniels, was a seasoned cop with a weathered face and a calm demeanor. The second, Officer Ruiz, was younger, her eyes sharp and assessing. Karen's posture stiffened, But she didn't back down. Finally, she exclaimed, as if the police were her allies. "These people are harassing me. I demand you arrest them." Daniels raised an eyebrow, glancing at Mike. "What's the situation?" he asked, ignoring Karen's outburst. Mike recounted the events with precision, the stolen items, the footage, Karen's refusal to cooperate. Ruiz stepped toward Karen, her hand resting lightly on her belt. "Ma'am, we need to see what's in your bag." Karen's eyes widened, her bravado crumbling further. "This is an invasion of privacy," she snapped, but her voice trembled. Emily watched, her heart pounding. This was the moment of truth. If Karen had some kind of pull, now was when it would show. But the officers weren't fazed. Ruiz extended her hand, repeating the request. Karen hesitated, then, with a dramatic sigh, dumped the contents of her purse onto a nearby display table. Out tumbled the pens, the paper, the ink cartridges, the planner, and the stapler, none of them paid for. None of them tagged with a receipt. The older customer gasped softly, shaking his head. Karen's face flushed crimson. "Those aren't mine," she insisted. "They must have fallen in by accident." The lie was so blatant it was almost laughable. But no one was laughing. Daniels picked up the leather planner, flipping it open. Inside was a receipt not from Office Depot, but from a rival store, dated weeks ago. "So you're saying you accidentally carried all this into your bag?" he asked, his tone dry. Karen stammered, her words tripping over each other. "Two didn't mean Toy was going to pay." Then came the twist that hit like a punch. As Daniels examined the planner, a small plastic baggie slipped out from between the pages. Inside were several white pills, unmarked, suspicious. The room went silent. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Mike's eyes narrowed. Even the older customer froze, his ink forgotten. Karen's face went pale, her mouth opening but no words coming out. "That's not mine either," she finally blurted, but the panic in her voice was unmistakable. Ruiz carefully picked up the baggie, holding it up to the light. "We'll need to test this," she said, her voice calm but firm. Karen's hands shook as she tried to back away, but Mike stepped in, blocking her path. "You're not going anywhere," he said. The officers exchanged a glance. This wasn't just shoplifting anymore. The stakes had skyrocketed, and Karen knew it. Her earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by raw fear. Daniels radioed for backup, his voice steady but urgent. "We've got a possible controlled substance. Send a unit to Office Depot." Karen's knees buckled slightly, and she grabbed the edge of the display table for support. "You can't do this," she cried, her voice cracking. "I'm not a criminal." But the evidence was piling up, literal and figurative, and no amount of shouting could change that. Emily, watching from the counter, felt a strange mix of vindication and pity. Karen had brought this on herself. But the fall was hard to watch. The officers began to question Karen more closely, their voices low but relentless. She tried to deflect, to accuse, to play the victim, but her words rang hollow. The cameras had caught everything, and the pills were a wild card she couldn't explain away. Mike stood by, arms crossed, a silent sentinel. Emily, still shaken, realized she'd done the right thing. even if it had felt like stepping into a lion's den. The truth was out, and Karen was cornered. The office depot was now a stage for Karen's unraveling. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher, casting stark shadows on her flushed face. The baggie of pills sat on the display table, a damning centerpiece amid the stolen pens and paper. Officer Daniels sealed it in an evidence bag, his movements deliberate, while Officer Ruiz kept her eyes on Karen, who was visibly crumbling. The older customer, still clutching his printer ink, finally slipped out the door, unwilling to witness the endgame. Emily, behind the counter, felt the weight of the moment. She'd set this in motion, and now it was hurtling toward a conclusion she couldn't predict. Karen's voice, once booming with entitlement, was now a desperate whine. "Those pills are prescription," she insisted, though she couldn't name the medication or produce a prescription. Daniels didn't buy it. "We'll verify that at the station," he said, pulling out handcuffs. The metallic click as they snapped around Karen's wrists echoed in the quiet store. Her eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. But there was none. Mike, the security guard, stood like a wall, his face unreadable. The confrontation reached its peak as Karen tried one last gambit. "You'll regret this," she spat, glaring at Emily. "I know people. I'll sue the store into the ground." But her threats lacked the fire they'd had earlier. The officers weren't impressed. And Emily, though shaken, stood her ground. She'd seen the truth. Karen was no victim, no matter how loudly she protested. The cameras, the stolen goods, the pills, they told a story she couldn't rewrite. As Ruiz led Karen toward the door, the reality of her situation hit. Her purse, now emptied of its secrets, was confiscated as evidence. The sirens outside signaled the arrival of backup, and the flashing lights painted the store in red and blue. Karen's defiance collapsed into sobs, her shoulders shaking as she was escorted to the police cruiser. The fall was swift and brutal. The woman who'd terrorized cashiers and bullied her way through town was now just another suspect, her power stripped away by her own actions. Emily watched through the store's glass doors as Karen was placed in the cruiser. A small crowd had gathered outside. Word traveled fast in a small town. Whispers of "that's Karen Miller" and "finally got caught" floated through the air. Mike turned to Emily, his stern face softening slightly. "You did good, kid," he said. "Not easy standing up to someone like that." Emily nodded, her throat tight. She hadn't felt brave, but maybe she was. The aftermath was quieter but no less profound. The police took the stolen items and the pills for processing. Karen was charged with shoplifting and possession of a controlled substance, pending lab results on the pills. The store manager, who'd never called Karen's phone, arrived later and reviewed the footage. He praised Emily's quick thinking, promising her a raise once her probation ended. The mysterious call from office depot manager turned out to be a bluff. Karen had saved her cousin's number under the name to intimidate people. It was a trick she'd used before, but it hadn't saved her this time. In the days that followed, the town buzzed with the story. Karen's arrest was a wake-up call, not just for her but for everyone who'd let her slide for too long. She'd built a reputation on fear, but it had crumbled under the weight of her own greed. At her hearing, Karen pleaded guilty to the shoplifting charge, her lawyer arguing she was under stress. But the judge wasn't swayed. The pills tested positive for an illegal opioid, adding a heftier charge. Karen faced community service and probation, a public humiliation for someone who thrived on control. For Emily, the experience was transformative. She'd been terrified, unsure of her place in the world. But standing up to Karen had changed something inside her. She started speaking up at work, taking initiative, even mentoring a new hire. The store became a place where she felt strong, not small. Mike, too, found a renewed sense of purpose. He'd always seen his job as routine, but that day reminded him why he showed up. The story of Karen's downfall spread beyond the town, a cautionary tale about accountability. It wasn't just about catching a thief. It was about the ripple effect of courage. Emily's decision to press that button, to trust her instincts, had sparked a chain of events that exposed the truth and gave a community permission to demand better. Karen, for her part, faded into the background, her bluster silenced by the consequences she couldn't outrun. In the end, the office depot went back to its quiet rhythm, but it carried a new energy. Emily kept a small notebook behind the counter, jotting down ideas for improving the store. She wasn't just a clerk anymore, she was someone who'd faced a storm and come out stronger. And somewhere, in the back of her mind, she knew she'd do it again if she had to. The world didn't need more Karens, but it could always use more Emilys.